All right, hey everyone. Well, good evening, depending on what time zone you're in. It's early evening or later evening. I'm going to start by saying that I've been working on diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice, injustice for a long time, social justice for a long time. And here is what I've learned first and foremost, that there's no magic wand that creates diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. It's you and me creating change one person at a time, one act at a time, one word at a time. So for the next few minutes, we're going to dive into what these daily actions might be. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion speaker, writer, and advocate. As a founder and CEO, I do a lot of work in the tech industry. I'm also currently writing a book called How to Be an Ally, which will come out next year. And the tools I use to do my work are human systems design, storytelling, community building, and behavior science. So no one is born a great ally, knowing everything there is to know about what people are going through and how you can better help them, and also how not to hurt them. Allyship is a journey, and I was not born an ally. I had a life that fortunately helped prepare me, and then we all have our unique aha moment. So my aha moment happened a while ago. During my first weeks of college, I was walking through the quad at the center of the University of Washington campus, and I happened upon a group of Black students talking about the injustices they face daily and talking through what they were going to do about it. I sat and listened for a while, and first I went through denial. It felt like it felt like they were just stirring things up. But then I listened more and I heard their stories, and my denial turned to anger and frustration, and also sadness and guilt, because I realized I had been wrong. And I realized that they had gone through something that I didn't know about. Around that same time, one of my best friends who was Black had just moved to Atlanta to go to school. And she told me, well, at least here in Atlanta, people are openly racist, unlike in Seattle where they're covert. That hit hard. I was confronted by my own ignorance. And, you know, I had diverse friends throughout my life. I grew up in diverse neighborhoods in Oakland and then South Seattle, went to uniquely diverse public schools, but we never talked about racism or sexism or ableism. I was in denial, and there is privilege in that denial. Some people don't get to have that privilege of being in denial. Have you been here? Have you gone through some of your life not knowing about racism or maybe ableism or sexism or other isms? We all have our own awakenings. And since that moment, I spent years of my life really focused on creating a more equitable and just world. And I realized at that time that I had been taught by history books what I thought was just history. The murder of George Floyd was an aha moment for a lot of people this year, and we've had a collective awakening. But the reality is that Black people have been feeling this and seeing this and experiencing this for a long time. It's not new. 150 years since we abolished slavery might seem like a long time until you realize and you go deeper into what happened since. We did not move from enslaving people to being full equality in a few generations. We went from enslavement to severe discrimination and segregation to systems that still carry through them some deep-seated racism in our justice systems, our education systems, finance, and even workplace systems. My parents lived when we had systemic segregation in this country, and inevitably they had biases that I learned, and I've had to unlearn them. I'm still working to unlearn them. For Black and Indigenous people, there are some intergenerational wealth and health disparity. There's a lot of intergenerational healing we all have to do to work on. Wealth and health disparity to correct, deep racism and sexism to dispel, and then the hard internal work to investigate the biases we've all learned and to unlearn them. We have work to do, and it's on all of us to change it. So right now, many people are wondering what you can do. As a white woman in the United States, I have a good amount of privilege. There's a lot I can do to advocate for change, to become anti-racist, to advocate for anti-racist systems and cultures. And it's my job as an ally to step up, to speak up and work toward change. So sometimes the beginning is unlearning what we know about success and opportunity. Many of us have been told our whole lives that if you work hard, that hard work pays off, you get what you deserve, you live your dream. But for many people, that's not true. They have to work 10 times as hard to get to the same places and work against many barriers put in front of them by society. We have to unlearn and relearn history and the deep reality of people's unique experiences, because the reality is that history books and even Wikipedia are statistically written by white men. And as a result, they likely have unintentionally left out key pieces of our history. Our education systems have deep inequities within them, so we don't learn everything. Sometimes a lack of diverse networks. For many of us, our friends come from similar backgrounds, intergenerational learning from our parents who grew up in a different time. So in order to truly understand each other, we have to unlearn our gaps in history and learn our biases and then relearn from different perspectives. So in the tech industry, lots of people are from different underrepresented identities, facing barriers and discrimination in the tech industry. Women and people who are non-binary, so don't necessarily identify as a man or a woman, racial and ethnic minorities, LGBTQIA, people with disabilities, veterans, religious minorities, and in tech specifically, also anyone over 35, and many others. And then it's important to keep in mind intersectional identities. So many people can hold more than one of these identities, which actually compounds their potential barriers in opportunity to live, to love, to lead, to thrive. How does this play out in the workplace? So historical privilege and oppression that we just talked about turns into the schools we have access to, the networks that can get us jobs or don't, the discrimination we face daily outside of the workplace, let alone inside of the workplace, that we may be experiencing systemic inequities in hiring, pay, and promotion. Personal biases can play a role throughout hiring processes, promotions, reviews, even who leads and speaks in meetings and how meetings are assigned, how stretch assignments get assigned, the big breaks that can happen. And then cultural marginalization can lead to a lot of things that daily over and over can really wear you down. So how do we solve it? I believe we won't radically shift these until we reach a critical mass of allies and advocates, people working actively together to create change together for each other. So allyship is recognizing that imbalance in opportunity and using your power and your privilege to change it. Allyship is really seeing and understand the person next to us and the person missing who should be standing next to us. And first, knowing what they're going through and then helping them succeed and thrive with us. It's both empathy and action. Who is an ally? We're everyone from every background. There's a lot of ways that I'm very privileged and some ways that I'm not. And I work every day to use my privilege to be an ally for other people. Plus I need allies too. I need you all to be allies for me. And it benefits us all. When we work to create diverse and inclusive teams, lots of data shows we'll be happier, more innovative, more productive, more profitable, and it's the right thing to do. So start by doing no harm. So we all harm people without intending to, and it's our job as allies to listen, to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, make mistakes, apologize, and keep learning. Most microaggressions and biased decision-making is unintentional, built over years and years of conditioning, which means that we have to do a little work to counteract them. So about 8 years ago, I was an executive at an international engineering firm in San Francisco. It was my dream job. I was making real change in the world and I was really proud of my work. And yet at the same time, it became the worst professional experience of my life. While there were some bigger issues, most of what happened were little behaviors and patterns that slowly chipped away at my ability to do my work well. They ate away at my confidence, my leadership, and my capacity to innovate. I was the only woman in the room most of the time on a leadership team of 19, and I could have used an ally. I was dismissed, I was not listened to, I was interrupted, talked over, my ideas were taken by other people and championed, my expertise was regularly questioned, and I was belittled to the point where I began to question my own expertise and experience, despite a track record of success in my career and also even in that workplace. It really wore me down. The former White House CTO, Megan Smith, calls it a death from 1,000 paper cuts. It's those little things every day that wear you out over time. So at a real low point, I read an article about toxic workplace culture and microaggressions. So microaggressions in the workplace are everyday slights, insults, negative verbal and nonverbal messages, sometimes intentional, sometimes not, that can impede your ability to do your work well. It can make you feel unsafe, belittled, disrespected, unheard, othered, like you feel like you don't belong. And it sounded familiar. I realized I wasn't failing, that the culture around me was actually failing me. It was not created for me. And I wasn't the only one. Similar behaviors affect underrepresented people of all backgrounds in the workplace. And it has a real impact on our colleagues, our teams, our companies, and our collective capacity to innovate. Exclusion can turn into lots of different things, including imposter syndrome, that feeling that I am not the expert that I am, that I don't belong as the leader despite being a leader. Stereotype threat, a fear that you might play into stereotypes of how I might be perceived by someone else, covering a piece of my identity, code switching, being somebody different at home than you are at work, a lack of productivity, lower engagement levels. And then lots of studies are now coming out that there are physical and mental issues that can come up with repeated microaggressions. And then of course, in the tech industry, 40% of engineers leave tech and they go on to other careers where they become leaders. So I actually left my job as an executive to start Change Catalyst to really address this in the tech industry. So do something. When you don't act, you actually become complicit. So make sure that you are doing something. Take a risk, even if it's small. Get uncomfortable. Give me your full attention. Put down your phone, close your laptop, and really pay attention. That can make a really big difference in how somebody shows up in the speaking engagement or in a meeting or just one-on-one. Don't interrupt. People from underrepresented backgrounds are more likely to be interrupted, so take a step back and listen. Echo and attribute. So often an underrepresented person's ideas are dismissed and brought up by somebody else and championed. So make sure that you're echoing their ideas and attributing it to them. Learn the language people use to describe their identities, their pronouns, how they describe their disability, religion, or ethnicity. It matters, and it's okay to ask. Also learn that what language is not okay. So work on your biases and your microaggressions, really go deep and understand how to make sure that you're not doing harm. And then the last, of course, is to listen and learn. We're always learning on this journey. So do some good hard reading, follow underrepresented people on social media, go to events created for diverse people, just really learn how your actions and words might affect people. So the second piece is to advocate for people in small ways that can make a big difference. Knowing that people are maybe going through imposter syndrome, stereotype threat, microaggressions, what can you do? Make sure that you're looking for not only commonalities, but also valuing differences. So we're often we often gravitate when we meet somebody, and even when we've worked with them for some time, we gravitate toward what we have in common. But the other part of being an ally is really valuing and appreciating what we don't have in common, our unique experiences, making sure that we're listening to those unique experiences. It comes up a lot in 2020. It was a good time to be an ally in 2020 because we're all going through something. And some of us are going through more than others because COVID and racial injustice are disproportionately affecting some people over others. So parents maybe have a new job they didn't bargain for. Uncertainty around job security can make a difference in people's lives. COVID worries, disruptions, illness, death of family members and friends, and of course, racial violence and injustice. Now's the time not to ignore these. So make sure that if you're a manager or your director or you're even a colleague, if you're seeing that somebody is going through something, check in with them. It can look like somebody not turning on the video anymore or not showing up the way they normally do. Check in with them, find out what's going on, see if you can help. Burnout is a big thing. So how can you support? How can you give them grace? Intervene. You can disrupt the power dynamics. If you see somebody is being uninterrupted or belittled, do something, say something. Amplify diverse voices and refer and encourage people to lead. Right now in this moment, also make sure that you're referring people to jobs because underrepresented people are more likely to be out of a job right now. And then, of course, speak up for and advocate for systemic change. And then lead the change. Mentor, sponsor, teach, volunteer, work to build allies, really encourage allies, model allyship, and of course, correct those systemic inequities in hiring, pay, promotion, leadership. Allyship is uncomfortable. Move through it. Allyship is courageous. Choose courage over fear or complacency. Allyship is a lifelong journey. We don't always get it right, but we keep going. And allyship is also consistent action. So I've just named about almost 20 different things. So pick one thing that you will do, commit to taking action today. This change takes all of us. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And I just want to leave you with one resource that I can offer each week. My weekly live event and podcast series, Leading with Empathy and Allyship, is every Tuesday. We record with a live audience and then it comes out as a podcast the next week. And I interview an expert. We talk about tangible, actionable steps to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion as an ally. So you can learn more at changecatalyst.co/allyship series. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to contact me to learn more.